Hello everybody, this is Papa. I wanted to read you another story. You can see I've got my little Christmas hat on and wearing our blast shirt. But as you get ready for Christmas, I thought I'd read you a story. This one is about Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer. Look at that red nose. This book's been in our family for a long time, and I thought I'd go ahead and share it with you. And I hope you have a great Christmas. So I'll go ahead and read it to you, and I thought at the end we could sing Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer all together. And I hope everybody can hear me okay. I know we're talking to Lily and Parker and Gemma, and of course we've got Laura and Caleb and Elise and Isaac. But I hope you enjoy this story. Now here's how it starts. There's Rudolph up at the North Pole, and they're in Toyland. And it says, once there was a reindeer named Rudolph who lived at the North Pole in Toyland. Rudolph was younger and smaller than the other reindeer up there. They all had tall antlers, and you can see Rudolph really doesn't have any antlers, but the other reindeer had big antlers, and that made him feel really good. Rudolph's antlers were only tiny little stubs. Worst of all, Rudolph had a nose that was big and bright red. It was so red that it glowed in the dark. Can you sort of see the nose glowing a little bit? Well, poor Rudolph, he wanted to be like the other reindeer in Toyland. Look at all the other reindeer and look at their big antlers. See those antlers? Oh, they've got some big antlers. All of them. Oh, but there's Rudolph. He doesn't have big antlers, and there's his nose. He wanted to be like the other reindeer. Oh, to have a small brown nose instead of a big bright red one. So he didn't like his red nose. The other reindeer made fun of Rudolph and called him names. That's not very nice. Look at those reindeer. They were not very nice to Rudolph. Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer, they teased over and over again, and that was sad. Sometimes the other reindeer made a circle around him. See, they're sort of going in a circle around Rudolph, and they'd sing, red nose, a funny sight, big as an apple, and twice as bright. Oh, they were making fun of poor Rudolph. They'd even kick up little snowballs. And see all the little white speckles on Rudolph? That's from sort of kicking up little snow onto Rudolph. Well, what we know so far is the other reindeer are really not very nice to poor Rudolph. He was a little bit different. Maybe you know somebody that's a little bit different. I hope you're nice to them. All the other reindeer love to play games. Look at them. They're out having so much fun. They're sliding, they're climbing, they're doing all kinds of fun stuff. But Rudolph was never asked to play with them. He stood behind a pine tree and watched. He was very lonely. Do you see him standing by a pine tree? He's just watching while the others play together. He couldn't even play hide and seek with the other animals because his nose gave him away when he was hiding. They could always find him so easy. So it was hard for Rudolph to play, and others just didn't want to play with him. Well, before Christmas Eve, Santa's elves put up a sign. See the elves putting up a sign? And what the sign said is that Santa Claus was going to be selecting his team to help pull the sleigh. And of course, Santa only wanted the biggest, the fastest reindeer to help pull the sleigh. So they were going to have them all get together at 8 o'clock in the evening. As the reindeer were asked to line up at 8 o'clock in the meadow, Santa Claus was coming to choose the team that would deliver the presents. So everybody was excited to get ready. The reindeer danced with excitement when they heard the news. They pranced and tossed their antlers and pawed the snow. Look, they're all super excited because they know that some of them would get selected to be with Santa Claus on Christmas Eve. And it was a super big honor to be on, to get selected. So they were really hoping they'd get selected. But Rudolph was sad. Look at poor Rudolph. He saw the sign. Look at his nose. He saw the sign, but he was ashamed to have Santa see his bright nose. So you know what he decided to do? He decided to hide. And there you can see him hiding behind what's called a holly bush. And a holly bush has red berries. And if you look close, you can see the red berries, and Rudolph's nose is red, so it made it easier for him to hide because there were red berries next to his red nose. And so he chose a holly bush to hide behind, but he could still see the other reindeer playing. At 8 o'clock, when all the other reindeer had gone to the meadow, Rudolph was feeling very sad. His bright nose blended in with the bright red berries, and the thick green leaves concealed the rest of him. No one would ever find him there. He was hiding behind a holly bush. Well, guess who comes out at 8 o'clock? There's Santa Claus. He comes out at 8 o'clock, and look at the line. Reindeer are all lined up with the elves. Do you see all that? In the meadow, all the reindeer in Toyland, except for Rudolph, stood in a line while Santa inspected them. Santa chose very carefully. Only the fastest and the strongest and the best reindeer would do. Then here comes Santa Claus. He's starting to make his decisions. And guess who he picked first? I think Dasher will be fine. He's the biggest reindeer. So Dasher is the biggest reindeer. And then he said, and Dancer, he's the strongest. And he kept going. Ho, 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 let's see, said Santa. Look, he's looking at picking some more. He's looking at picking some more. Here's Prancer and here's Vixen. They make the smoothest landings on rooftops. Comet is the fastest. That makes sense. And Cupid is the most sure-footed, said Santa. I'll pick him. And last, Santa said, I choose Donner and Blitzen. They're the best at twisting over the treetops and skimming over telephone poles. So once he had made his choice, every reindeer was super happy, but not all got selected. But those who didn't get selected also had some pretty good jobs. So these deer didn't get selected, but they got to play with the electric trains, and they also got to cuddle with some of the animals that were going to be sent to children. And so they were sort of testing some of the toys. And so they were happy about that. And then the other reindeer, like up here that got chosen, like Dancer and Prancer, they were really excited. The only reindeer without a job was Rudolph. He wanted to help, but he knew he would be laughed at. So he stayed hidden behind the holly hedge. He could see everybody doing everything, but he was hiding. At last it was Christmas Eve. Look at them starting to load up the sleigh, all the elves with presents. I don't care if they do make fun of me, said Rudolph suddenly. I want to help. So Rudolph, seeing what was going on, decided he really wanted to help. He dashed from his hiding place behind the hedge and went to find Santa. There must be something I can do. That night, it was bitter cold, and a terrible fog covered all the earth. Santa's elves kept bumping into each other as they hitched up the team. Look at the elves down here. They're trying to get everything, and they could hardly see. It was so foggy. Maybe you've been in some thick fog. It gets really hard to see what's going on. Santa's elves kept bumping into each other. They could hardly see. And guess what else? To make matters worse, Dasher and Dancer, the first two that were picked, started to argue who should be the real first reindeer to do everything. They weren't happy being just together. One of them wanted to be the leader. And so they started to argue. And so Santa Claus had to come over and tell them they shouldn't be arguing. Look at Santa talking to Dasher and Dancer. Look at that. And Santa Claus was even starting to get a little upset because it was like he couldn't find his list, and it was just like things were not going well. And it was all because of all this fog. Nobody could see, and it was starting to cause people to be a little bit sad. Well, guess what happened? Just then, a soft glow. Look at that. There's Rudolph. Rudolph walked out, and in the fog, it started to light up. And all of a sudden, Santa could see again, and he found his list, and he became happy again. He was so excited. And Santa started to ask, who brought this fine lantern to light the way? And I must take it with me. Why, I can see perfectly clear right now. So with Rudolph, they could start to see again. It's not a lantern, said Rudolph, trembling. The light comes from my nose. So he told Santa, it's not a flashlight, it's just my nose. And Santa was like, ho, 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 that nose of yours lights up everything perfectly. We can finally see. Well, guess what happened here? Look at this. Santa is so happy to see Rudolph with his red nose. Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer, said Santa, I'm certainly glad to see you. Your light will guide my sleigh tonight. I appoint you the head of my team, the #1 deer in the world. He just made Rudolph the #1 reindeer, and everybody's pretty happy. Rudolph held his head high. Was Rudolph feeling pretty happy? It was a big honor. He was feeling really good. All the other reindeer bowed. Donner and Dancer helped Rudolph put on his harness, and Cupid gave him a beautiful sprig of holly berries. Isn't that nice? So Rudolph was feeling awful good. Then down through the clouds and over the sleeping houses, Santa and his team flew on that foggy Christmas night. Look at that. Rudolph is in the front. Look at that. With Santa way back there and all the reindeer. But who's in front? It's Rudolph with his nose so bright. Isn't that fun? And leading everything was Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer. So if you happen to see a soft glow in the sky on Christmas Eve, you can be sure that Rudolph, the most famous reindeer of all, is very near. And that's the story of Rudolph, the red-nosed reindeer. You can see that at the beginning he was sort of sad, and all the other reindeer sort of made fun of him, and he was a lonely kind of reindeer. But he had the desire to go ahead and let Santa know that his nose might help. And during that really foggy night, Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer sort of saved the night. And now he became the most famous reindeer of all, Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer. So if you want, you can sing along with me. Let me see here. I've got the lyrics to Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer. So here we go. Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer had a very shiny nose. Oh, that was a little bit high. And if you ever saw him, you would even say it glows. All of the other reindeer used to laugh and call him names. They never let poor Rudolph join in any reindeer games. Then one foggy Christmas Eve, Santa came to say, ho, ho, ho. Rudolph, with your nose so bright, won't you guide my sleigh tonight? Then all the reindeer loved him as they shouted out with glee, Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer, you'll go down in history. That's a fun song. Well, I love you and I hope you have a great day. Hope you enjoyed the story about Rudolph the red-nosed reindeer. And remember,
I love you so much.
bye.